September quarter figures of the GDP quite promising.
Some very good news for the government today, Kieran. It's not quite the snapback that Scott Morrison spoke about in March, but it's not far off. Biggest bounce back in GDP in a quarter since 1976, 3.3% up in the September quarter after a 7% fall in the June quarter. Could have been greater had it not been for the Victorian lockdown, although JobKeeper also saved the day there. But that program, of course, is coming off slowly and to be scrapped in March. Time to point out here that while we are technically officially out of recession, we nearly avoided a recession altogether. In the March quarter, growth was down just 0.3%. Could have been positive with stimulus rolled out a bit quicker. People in government stoked with the numbers today, however, and point out that overseas countries may have had bigger bounce backs, but because they are locking down again, they're going negative again. Have a look at where all the growth is here. You've got accommodation and food services up 40%. It's all about lockdowns or having them lifted. You'll see Kieran's interview with the Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, shortly. Here he talks about the challenges ahead in the economy, given our relationship with China at the moment.
It's no secret, Kieran. There are some challenges in that relationship. There are some difficulties on the trade front. That might be an understatement. They're significant and they're serious. Now, we would like to work through those on a bilateral level, but if that's not possible, we retain the options to use multilateral forums. But it is a significant relationship.
Do you need to react to wolf warrior diplomacy? That's what it's called. The Chinese are not great at soft power, are they? I mean, their diplomacy is something, obviously, for a great power that is lacking. Do we need to react to the wolf warrior sort of diplomacy with emotion and outrage, or do you just let it slide?
If you're talking about that doctored photo, then that was hugely insulting and completly unnecessary. So the Prime Minister was absolutely right to speak very strongly.
It was reprehensible, but is the Prime Minister the one that needs to do it? I mean, it was reprehensible, it was disgraceful. I mean, everyone agrees with that, but is it the PM that needs to respond to a mid-ranking official?
Well, again, as the leader of our country, he speaks for our nation, and you would find it hard to find somebody across the country who wasn't offended by that.
Generally, the Treasurer says we are doing better than anywhere else in the world.
Australia's economy is coming back. The economic recovery is well underway. There is real cause for optimism and hope. Australia is better placed than nearly any other country in the world to make this comeback from COVID-19.
At a parliamentary committee hearing today, Reserve Bank Governor Philip Lowe praised New South Wales's tax reform during this pandemic period on stamp duty. And Kieran asked Josh Frydenberg about whether he would contemplate reform.
Every time you switch housing, you pay a tax. If you stay in your place, you don't pay the tax. So it's a tax on mobility. And in a country that's inherently mobile, we want people to be flexible, to be able to move around in response to jobs and opportunities and family reasons. We don't want to put taxes on mobility. So I think it's the right thing to do.
Big tick from the RBA Governor. Deputy Chair.
Can we expect any reform from the federal government in May, or will you maintain a less ambitious strategy?
Well, firstly, Governor Lowe has spoken very favourably about the government's economic response and our economic policy, and he has praised it as being the right policy. We don't see government as the solution. We see government as a catalyst for that solution. The private sector can help lead this recovery, and that's why we put in place a series of incentives to encourage them to hire, to innovate, to invest and to grow.
And we saw a further easing of restrictions in New South Wales today, which will help the economy further. Dancing allowed now, a lift on caps on wedding and funeral attendance, so there's no cap essentially, a 1 person per 2 square metres rule in indoor venues, full stadiums in time for the cricket season. The New South Wales Treasurer Dominic Perrottet and other ministers have been lobbying Premier Gladys Berejiklian on this lifting of restrictions for months. They finally got there. Perrottet calling it Freedom Day. From the opposition's point of view today with these GDP figures, Jim Chalmers, the Shadow Treasurer, says that the figures are cold comfort to 1 million Australians who are unemployed.
What looks like a recovery on paper will still feel like a recession for too many Australians. This quarterly GDP number will be cold comfort for 1 million Australians unemployed. Cold comfort for the 2.4 million Australians who are either looking for work or looking for more hours at work. So we need less smirk from the Treasurer and more work for millions of Australians who are looking for it.
Why is the government congratulating itself today when almost 1 million Australians are unemployed, 1.4 million Australians are underemployed, and for Australians who have jobs, wages growth is at record lows? Why is the government congratulating itself and using marketing slogans when so many Australians don't have a job?
Well, Mr Speaker, the only person who's disappointed in today's national accounts is the Leader of the Opposition, Mr Speaker, because today's national accounts shows that the economic recovery is underway.